Very happy to be here. Hello, everyone. Isn't it strange that we're talking about ecology and we're all drinking so much water out of small plastic bottles? I just had to say that because it's driving me crazy. Well, it's great to be in the Amazon to talk about equality of life for all species. It's a perfectly simple and direct concept. And yet so much of our daily lives, the work we do, actually stands in the way of that or contradicts it over and over again. No matter what we do, we're mostly finding ourselves doing things that are actually destroying the planet. Frankly, to put it very bluntly, on a global scale, we're doing way too much stupid work. And this is really the crucial problem that I want to address today. Most of us think and talk about work in terms of our jobs, the things we do in exchange for money. We're living through right now one of the greatest speed-ups in human history. The work life today is more hours of work every day. The hours that we spend at work are more intense than they've ever been. People are living this frantic, sped-up life, and it's something that we all are going through. Sometimes it's because we have a long work day. Some people need two or three jobs to do pay their bills, etc. If you have a family life, a lover, whatever, that can sometimes feel like a job too. So suddenly, our entire life is full. We live this frantic, sped-up life, and everybody treats it like the weather changed and it's normal. But now we live in this world where, what does it take now? 5 phone calls, 25 text messages, 10 emails, just to make an appointment with your close friend to have a cup of coffee in 3 weeks. This is insane. How did it get like this? Well, it's not an accident. It's actually a series of social decisions were made about how life should be structured, and we did not participate in those decisions. And it has everything to do with the fact that we have no democratic process around the work that we do. So this is the outcome of a social logic over which we have no control, and yet our lives are strongly shaped by it. Somehow the system under which we live keeps expanding, keeps growing, keeps using the energy and goodwill we bring to our work lives to make a world quite different than one any of us would choose freely. How is it that so many of us go to work with the best of intentions and yet find our work contributing to a world that is brutalizing so many? How is it that the frantic pursuit and urgency of growth continually leaves us with a world in which billions of people are living in abject poverty? The fact is we're living in the midst of a planetary work machine that has steadily expanded the amount of work humans do and the resources that we use to do it over the past 250 years. And this planetary work machine is not improving the quality of life for all species. On the contrary, it's actually threatening the very existence of life itself. So in spite of how everyone's working all the time, where I live in San Francisco, there is no working class, or at least nobody thinks so. Because in the United States, the success of the ideological apparatus has been to convince everybody that they're in the middle class. John McCain ran for president against Obama, saying that if you made $4.5 million a year, you were in the middle class. This is insane. And so what we get in the United States is if you're not pushing a shopping cart down the street looking for aluminum cans and bottles to make some little bit of money, or you're riding in your private jet to your next golf course to play some golf, everybody else is in the middle class. The most poor and the most rich are not, but everybody else, which means that actually the working class, all of us together who go to work every day, have been redefined as the middle class. And this is very important because when you think of yourself as middle class, you don't tend to think about your political agency, your ability to affect the world at your place of work. You go to your job, you do your job, you get your money, and now you're a political agent after work when you go shopping. And you're supposed to buy the right products. So in the United States over the last 20 or 30 years, politics has moved away completely from work-based politics. The union movement's in collapse. Nobody talks about work. It's our greatest public secret. Instead, you're scolded or saluted for buying the right products or the wrong ones. Like, don't eat meat. Don't buy sweatshop garments or unfairly traded coffee. Do buy local organic vegetables. Do shop at your local small businesses. This is the end result of the capitalist paradigm in which you're left essentially as an isolated individual, consumer, not a worker, just a consumer, who is supposed to vote with your money, with your dollars. So at no point should you imagine that you should have some control over the work we do. Why do we do what we do? Why don't we have a democratic process deciding what work we all do every day? We never talk about it. Nor should you have any concern for the results of what your company's doing. If you work at a place, if they're dumping poisonous substances in the water system on the other side of the planet, that's not your problem. You just do your job and keep quiet. That's how it works in every part of the business practice in these days. Nor do you don't even get to talk about how much carbon dioxide your company's creating. It's not part of it. So let's face it, there's a lot of work to do to make an ecologically sane, healthy, and comfortable life for everyone. But we're not doing that work. Instead, we're working at jobs and in industries that are perpetuating the destruction of habitats, species, and human communities while plundering natural resources and threatening the stability of planetary ecology, as my previous colleagues have said very well. Now, as individuals, we don't have an easy way to address this drama. I grew up in San Francisco, and 30 years ago, when I entered the workforce, I found myself doing what a lot of people did like me. We entered the financial district of San Francisco and started working at a bank. That was the job. There was no real other work to do, and I could type and I could handle information. So when you're in that job, I didn't expect to stay there very long. I knew it was a short-term commitment, and I looked around at all the people that were like me, and same story. They weren't going to be there very long at all. So I would ask people, well, what are you here doing? They go, I'm not a bank worker. No, I'm just here for a few months getting the money I need, and then I'm going to carry on with my real life, which was we were dancers and philosophers and historians and photographers and a whole range of creative activities that, of course, nobody's going to pay us to do. Oh, you can do that in your free time, but you can't have a job doing that. Somebody said it very well. What you see me doing isn't what I do. And that captured perfectly the experience of a generation where we are all living a bifurcated life, a life that's divided in half between doing something for money because we have to have a job and we go get a job and that's what we get, to pay our bills. But the things we really care about, the things that make us feel fully alive as human beings, we do that when we're not at work. So what you find is people who are not working, when you're not at your job, you're actually working very hard because the need to engage in useful work instead of useless toil is a deep human need, and more of us are asserting that. So in other words, when we're not at our job, we're working quite hard on projects and activities of our own choice and without money as the purpose. Now across the planet, people are taking their time and their technological know-how out of the market and in small little projects are beginning to make life better today. Right now, your life is better if you do that. But you're also setting the foundation socially and technologically for a post-capitalist life, a life in which we actually decide together what we do and how we do it. Now, these initiatives are still pretty much an invisible challenge to the planetary work machine. Wow. Acting locally in the face of global catastrophes, friends and neighbors are beginning to redesign the fundamental technological foundations of modern life. These redesigns are being worked out through backyard, garage, research and development programs just among friends, using the waste, the detritus of modern life. Our contemporary commons takes the form of discarded bicycles and leftover deep fryer vegetable oil, of vacant lots and open bandwidth. Ecological restoration work, usually done by volunteers, is reviving shorelines, riversides, urban creeks, and expanding remnant habitats on hills and in canyons on behalf of thousands of plants, bugs, birds, and animals. Festivals, free services, restored natural areas, and anti-commodities are imaginative products of an anti-economy, provisionally under construction by freely cooperative and inventive people. They aren't waiting for an institutional change from governments and corporations. They're just getting on with building the new world in the shell of the old. Now, many people are now engaged in new ways of working precisely to gain some control over the purpose and structure of their own activities in ways that wage labor prevents and a politics of consumption ignores. Most of these activities get the acronym in English of DIY, or do it yourself, but it might be better to say DIT, do it together. Sometimes these DIY efforts are reclaiming ancient practices that have been lost to us in the modern urban environment, like growing your own food. While other times they involve a prefigurative re-inhabitation of the urban environment, as in critical mass bike rides, or in efforts to restore native habitats for other species, or in aquifer or water management projects. In the community gardening movement, for example, the first impulse is often grow your own tomatoes or zucchini, not a very big deal. It goes much further, though, by putting your hands into the soil in your own city, learning about the cycles of weather and seasons, where the water comes from, what grows well and what doesn't in particular soil. A whole ecological sensibility is born. Moreover, it's not an isolated activity. You meet your fellow gardeners. You learn the lessons they've already digested. A social exchange starts to take place outside of the market, where surplus produce and technical and ecological knowledge are freely shared. In San Francisco, other efforts are also underway to restore habitat for native plants, butterflies, and birds, and some people are agitating to daylight creeks that have been buried underground for decades and decades. On one San Francisco shoreline, restoration efforts have led to the sighting of over 80 bird species, as well as seals, sea lions, and bay porpoises. We're increasingly aware of nature in the city, and that the city is in nature. And we are working to integrate urban life with the natural systems on which it depends. An ecological transportation alternative emerged in the new bicycling culture that has exploded across the world's cities, often beginning with critical mass rides. Critical mass is an organized coincidence in which dozens or thousands of riders get together and simply ride home together. It's quite simple. But in doing that, you displace cars from the road. And in this new public space, rolling through the urban environment together, new ideas are hatched, new relationships start to emerge. And that experience in turn leads quickly to the idea of, once you're self-propelled, you want to fix your own bike, your flat tires or whatever. So that gave rise to the DIY bike shops. Cicla Facina, they call them in Italy, the cycle garages. In these bike shops, though, something pretty different is taking shape. Starting with discarded and broken bicycles and parts, a new social space emerges. If someone like me goes to one of these places, I come there with my broken bicycle, I say, will you please fix my bike? And they look at me like, no, we don't fix bikes here. But we'll show you how to fix your bike, bring it on in, and we'll put it up and we'll show you. If you need help, we're here to help you. So there's something really different there, because I'm not buying a service. I'm actually getting new relationships, and I'm being given freely technological information that I might not have had otherwise. And it also starts to establish the kind of meaningful connections and practical relationships that have been lost to us during the speed up and social fragmentation that have accompanied globalization. We want to be more self-sufficient, more locally resilient, more artistic and creative, and less dependent on large, complex systems. We want to shape science democratically, and our work for that matter, and embed technologies in an ecological sanity that is often opposed by business and profitability. We want to reinvent urban life based on ecologically sound natural systems. A movement of exodus from destructive, stupid work is already underway, although it's still small compared to the dominance of the planetary work machine. Global climate change, war, crashing biodiversity, waste and industrial pollution, mass starvation, and epidemic disease are just the top of a long list of really important reasons why we have to radically change how we live on Earth. We work together, but we don't often decide about it together. Work is shaped and driven by invisible hands and uncontrollable forces when it should be directed by us. Getting from the disparate experiments in work and technology and early stages of new social communities that we see in these now-topian initiatives, as I've called them, to the big political challenges ahead is an open and unknowable process of politics to come. But in that effort lays the hope of a true quality of life for all species. Our shared fate is bound up in our ability to consciously redirect our collaborative energies to a world of our own design. Life could be far more wonderful than it is. Shouldn't that be the work we do every day? Thank you.